Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
All right, let's get it going. A lot of people saying this video is doctored. It isn't. That's Eddie Pinero, Alabama kicking commitment, bombing a 73-yarder. Keep in mind the NFL record for the longest field goal ever, 64 yards. I mean, that is some kind of kick. I know nobody's on the field, but that's quite a leg. Of course, you know, can you make one with 1 second with a game on the line from deep? That'll be the question, but he brings a lot of talent to Tuscaloosa. Good evening, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Tider Insider TV. I'm Gary Harris, back after a week on the beach. Can't say I missed you, Rod.
No.
Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com. Remember, for the latest on the Crimson Tide, it's TiderInsider.com. Our program is always brought to you by Buffalo Rock, proud bottlers of Pepsi products across the great state of Alabama, like Pepsi Next, which, you know, is one of my personal favorites. BJ, no sound effect tonight, because it has all of that great Pepsi taste, 2/3 less calories than regular Pepsi. That's right, a 12-ounce can, only 60 calories per. So you can keep your girlish figure and enjoy that great Pepsi taste. Well, Rodney, we got a big show lined up. And, of course, my thanks to Jim Chapman for sitting in last week. A lot of people, I think, prefer looking at Jen over me, but my ugly mug is back. You ready to go?
You're nice and tan now.
Yeah, well, it ought to be. A week at the beach.
That hair is a little blonder, too.
Natural sun-kissed highlights. You know how it is. You go to the beach, everything lightens up. Well, we got some great news for Alabama football this week. Couple of commitments. We're going to begin with one from last week, because Alabama went into Jim Harbaugh's backyard, also Mark D'Antonio's backyard, but particularly Harbaugh making a lot of noise there in Michigan, and they pegged defensive end Khalid Kareem from the state of Michigan. Let's talk about him, Rodney. Alabama really has focused on defensive linemen ever since Nick Saban arrived in Tuscaloosa in 2007. That doesn't change, and this is another one of those guys, athletic pass rushers. You can't get enough of them.
Yep. And again, Gary, a lot of people thought he was sewn up for Michigan. He originally committed to Michigan State, backed off that commitment, reevaluated things, had 39 offers from around the country, narrowed it down to Alabama, Michigan, and Notre Dame. A lot of people thought until the last 24 hours that he was probably going to stay in state, go to Michigan. But once again, you know, you never count out Nick Saban, the Alabama coaching staff, when it comes to recruiting a top prospect.
Yeah, what kind of message does this send in terms of Alabama not going anywhere? You got Harbaugh coming down south, including Prattville holding these satellite camps, worried about recruiting the Southeast. And here's Alabama goes into Michigan and gets one of the best players from that state right out from under Harbaugh's nose.
Yeah, you got to take care of your own backyard first, certainly. And, you know, it's really, to me, a big loss for Jim Harbaugh from the standpoint of, you know, this is his first real full recruiting class. You certainly want to kind of beat Michigan State, first of all, in state, but you certainly don't want someone coming from down south like Alabama and stealing one of your top prospects.
There is a look at the statistics. You see, got that great range, 6'4", long arms. Probably even going to get bigger, but tremendous pass rushing ability. Again, the Tide picking him up over Michigan State, and just about everybody in the country had offered. He is a nice gain for Alabama. And the good news continued on the recruiting front today. Speaking of defensive linemen, an in-state prospect, Quentin Williams from nearby Winona High School in Birmingham, picking Alabama over Auburn and Mississippi State. And Rodney, Williams had previously been committed to the Auburn Tigers. Lance Thompson, former Alabama assistant, did a great job of recruiting him. He committed back in January, but I think everybody knew when he decommitted earlier this month that he was going to wind up putting on the crimson and white T-shirt and hat, and that happened today over at Winona High School.
You know, the amazing thing is he grew up a big Auburn fan, but he really had not been exposed to Alabama football. He decided to take a visit here. Gary backed off that commitment to Auburn, and certainly a big pickup for Alabama.
And here he is discussing his decision to roll with the Crimson Tide.
When I first committed, I committed as a fan instead of looking as an athlete and as a student athlete, and I really wanted to make sure my heart was in Auburn, so I decommitted and make sure I want to go see other places and other schools. Just knowing Nick Saban and his plan for his football players' future and the after football career, that just went in all to it. And Alabama is a great academic school and great football program and great athletic program.
Now, Rodney, I know you really like this guy, and let's be honest, you'll go to the moon to get a big-time defensive lineman if you can, but when one is in your own backyard, previously committed to your in-state rival, and you get a commitment from him, that makes it even sweeter for Alabama fans.
Well, it really does. But again, you know, you have to look at it in a long-range perspective, Gary. And I think certainly he's a very talented, you know, prospect. And Alabama is going to need defensive linemen. I've talked about this repeatedly. One of the key areas for Alabama recruiting this year, certainly up front defensively, Quinnen Williams fills that spot, Gary. And he, like you said, you never really want to pass up on a good defensive lineman, but especially one so close to home.
All right, these two defensive linemen, the last two commitments for this class of 2016, 17 total commitments now. I think that's 4 or 5 defensive linemen. These two guys, can both or either one get on the field early?
Well, you know, it's always, you have to wait till they get here and kind of allow them an opportunity to go through practice and, you know, compete for positions. But again, I'll say this. When you look at what Alabama might be losing next year, we know they're losing Jaron Reed. We know they're losing DJ Petway, possibly Jonathan Allen, A'Shawn Robinson.
Yeah.
You know, they made the part early. They've got to load up. That's right.
All right. I'm sure that Nick Saban was in a great mood after getting those commitments. He was also in a great mood in Louisville this past weekend, where he received the Blanton Collier Award for integrity on and off the field. Collier, of course, the former Kentucky head coach and coach of the Cleveland Browns. Saban said he knew how important the history of the award was since he spent time in Cleveland. It was also an opportunity to give us a little bit of a preview on what he thinks of this Crimson Tide team that will hit the field now in just a little more than 10 weeks.
Your team is sort of a work in progress, and I think when you start off-season program, spring practice, you kind of see, you know, the kind of character that the team's going to have from a competitive standpoint, the kind of leadership you're going to have on your team. You know, every team has some physical issues and problems, maybe a weakness here or whatever. How are you going to overcome that? So, but those things start to take shape, you know, even before fall camp starts. But I think, you know, some teams stall out. You know, you got to keep building on that, because the things that the team is doing right now is what's preparing them for a very tough season. So, and they have to understand that, and you got to pay the price for success up front. And I really kind of like the group that we have.
Coach Saban in the tux.
Yeah.
How about that, rocking the tuxedo? Well, I'll tell you something. He has sent a lot of guys on to the NFL. Some of them have had immediate success. Others, it's taken a little while. One of those that's starting to come into his own, cornerback out of Gadsden, Alabama, Dre Kirkpatrick, now the Cincinnati Bengals. Dre stopped by the Rich Eisen show out in California last week. He spoke about his time in Tuscaloosa with great fondness, especially learning from Nick Saban. As I said, he's really starting to turn it on there in Ohio. And he talks about why Alabama players are more prepared to handle the outside clutter that comes with NFL money and fame, maybe than some guys from other schools.
Coach Saban put a program together, you know, pretty much for after college.
Saban did this?
Coach Saban did. And so we did like maybe 3 or 4 days of training, like how people was going to come at you, how you need to react to certain situations.
This is before the rookie symposium.
This was before I even got drafted. This was when I was transitioned from leaving college going into the NFL. So he made sure he protected his guys, and that's why I tipped my hat off to him.
Right, Saban doesn't miss a beat, does he?
He really doesn't. He really doesn't. We've talked about all the programs he's had. That's one that we really haven't heard of before.
Yeah, good news and good stuff there from Dre Kirkpatrick. Well, more to come on this edition of Tider Insider TV. When we return, we'll get into some hoops. Levi Randolph has found a summer league destination, plus a big honor for head coach Avery Johnson. We'll have his reaction coming up, and we'll grade his first few months on the job. And we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. There's the information on the screen. Phone number is the same. You can reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag TiderInsiderTV. Our email address just a little bit different, TITV@WVUA23.com. So get in touch with us. We want to hear from you, because we'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV, returning after the break. He wasn't drafted by an NBA team, but Alabama's captain from last season, Levi Randolph, will certainly get an opportunity to play in the league. He signed on to be a part of 2 summer league teams, Oklahoma City first. Well, he'll reunite with Anthony Grant, who's an OKC assistant under Billy Donovan. Once play is over in Orlando, he'll go to Las Vegas and play with the Utah Jazz summer league team. Play, of course, for the summer leagues about to get underway, and Levi going to try to make a roster. And former Bama star Trevor Lacey also getting an opportunity. He'll play with the Cleveland Cavaliers summer league team. And Alabama's new basketball coach, Avery Johnson, was not in town this past weekend. Good cause, though. He was down in the state of Louisiana being inducted into a very prestigious Hall of Fame. His home state saw him get honored as he was one of 11 new members for the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. He's a New Orleans native. He played collegiately at Southern University. He ended up playing 16 seasons in the NBA, winning an NBA championship with the Spurs, and later coaching, of course, the Mavs and the Nets. He spoke about how excited he was to receive this special honor and recognition from his home state.
Who would have ever known, you know, somebody that was basically deep on the bench on his high school team back in 1983 would ever be in the Hall of Fame. But that's what dreams are made of. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm going in with this 2015 Hall of Fame group. I'm honored to have my family and friends here to celebrate.
And who knows, if he does really well as the Alabama men's basketball coach, he might be going into this state's Hall of Fame. That's sometime down the road. Let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. But Rodney, Avery has really set the state on fire in terms of the job he's done in a short period of time here in Tuscaloosa. We want to discuss what he's done so far. We've got a report card. We know he hasn't coached a game, and ultimately that's what it's going to be all about. But we have graded Coach on three things: coaching staff, recruiting, and fan buzz. And let's get started, Rodney, and your thoughts, beginning with coaching staff he's hired.
Well, I think he's hired a really good staff, Gary. It appears, you know, he's certainly hired some guys with experience. I think when you look at Simon, he's an outstanding, you know, assistant coach with a great track record, Bob Simon, and, you know, recruiting reputation. And I think that's one of the keys, is he's hired guys who can coach and recruit. And I think it was big for him to keep Antoine Petway. I think it certainly, you know, provides some things in state recruiting as well as in the program that are very helpful. I'm
with you. We both give him an A in terms of hiring his staff. I think a good mix in terms of recruiting, on the floor coaching, guys that can go into different areas, keeping Antoine Petway, who's a vital cog for recruiting in the state of Alabama, very, very good. All right, in terms of recruiting, I'll start here. I think he's done an excellent job shoring up the class from this past season, getting Dazon Ingram, who had been committed, then decommitted, and bringing in Eubanks. Still, though, I think he'll do better in the future. That's why I'm giving him a B+. I think under the circumstances, he's done excellent. But, you know, I think there's certainly room for improvement, although that's not his fault. I think it'll get better.
Well, and that's why I gave him an A. I think you have to look at the circumstances that he inherited and coming in. And so I felt like under those circumstances, he did a fabulous job. I mean, when you're talking about getting Ingram, getting Eubanks, getting King to transfer, Nick King, I think he's done an outstanding job. Now, if you look at it on a larger scale, you look at it and you see where he's starting to entice a lot of top underclassmen to look at Alabama. So I took that into consideration as well. I think when you look at that, he's getting that Alabama name out there with all these recruits. You know, Gary, he's off to a really good start.
And in terms of buzz, you gave him an A, I gave him an A+. It's just hard to do better than everybody's excited.
Well, BJ didn't tell me I could give him an A+, or I would have. I mean, he certainly does bring a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of passion, a lot of energy. So, okay, you can give him an A+.
Yeah, he has got that part going, that's for sure. Well, more to come on Tider Insider TV, including one former Crimson Tide wide receiver that's turning heads in the National Football League. And next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information's posted there on the screen on how you can get in touch with us. Phone lines are open at 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. We'll be right back with a Tuscaloosa tradition here on this television station. Tider Insider TV. We'll continue on WVUA 23 right after this. Alabama fans aren't surprised. Even though DeAndre White went undrafted, he's showing his stuff out in San Francisco. Turning heads at the 49ers minicamp. Reports say that of the 12 receivers on the roster, White has been routinely targeted more than any of them. Hopefully he'll make that club and show his true talents, because the guy can really, really fly. All right, Rod, it's time to get to the phone lines, and they're lined up for us. First up tonight, our good buddy Joseph right here in Tuscaloosa. Joseph, what up, partner?
Everything all gravy with you. What's up? But hey, peep this out, man. I've been hearing there's a little unanimous decision, or maybe getting a little bit of a split decision between David Cornwell and Jacob Coker on the quarterback spot. Now, the quarterback situation looks like it's going to pan out. Well, what's y'all take on that?
Well, Joseph, I tell you what, I think that those two guys are in the mix. Rodney, you know, what we were being told, Alton Morris might be a candidate as well. Don't count him out, huh?
I think when you look at all three of those guys, Gary, certainly David Cornwell is a guy that doesn't have any experience. He's going to be a redshirt freshman. He competed really well in the spring. I think he might have been the surprise of the spring, that spot. You know, Jacob Coker, I mean, he has all the talent in the world. If he can gain some consistency, you know, maybe he's the guy. And Alec Morris, he's been around a long time. He understands the offense, certainly, Gary. And, you know, he doesn't have much experience, but he's a guy that played big-time high school football in the state of Texas, and again, he's been in Tuscaloosa a while.
All right, thanks for the phone call, Joseph. Let's go over to center and talk to Buddy. Hey, Buddy, what's going on?
Hey, welcome back, Gary. How's
Thank
it
you,
going,
sir.
man?
Going great, my friend.
All right. I was just wondering, me and some friends of mine was wondering about why we've got to go back to Georgia and play Georgia in Athens again this year, when the last time we played during the regular season, we played them in Athens.
Yeah, just want to schedule.
Blackout.
Right, yeah. In 2007, though, they had played in Tuscaloosa, and Alabama lost a heartbreaker. Of course, went in 2008 and won. This time, the first game and the renewal of the series will be in Athens, just the way the schedule falls.
Yeah, you know, and a few years ago, Ole Miss came to Tuscaloosa back-to-back. Wasn't it 12 and 13, 2012, 2013? And, you know, usually probably what will happen is in 2016, I haven't seen that schedule yet, but Georgia will come over here.
Yeah, it's been 7 years since they've played, though, so I'm just glad to see them. Not in the regular season, obviously played in the SEC championship game, but looking forward to seeing that ball game over in Athens. That should be something else. All right, let's go to Birmingham and talk to Rick. Rick, what's up, man?
Yeah, this is Reg. I always make it a point to watch YouTube's program and Crimson Color.
Thanks.
And the other night, John on the Crimson Color mentioned a program. He said that the SEC had adopted, and I wish you two would really try to explain it to me, because the way John told it, Tennessee would get to play their players $600 a player, and Alabama was way down on the list at $300 a player. And Alabama brings in more money to the SEC than all of schools do. So could y'all explain that to me? I sure would appreciate it.
Well, I'm going to need a little more time, and what I'm going to do is before the program next week, I'm going to read up on exactly and try to have more of an explanation. We only got 30 seconds left. All I can tell you is those cost of attendance figures are set, and you know, each school is paying out different numbers, but I haven't looked at it close enough to see the disparity between one school and the other.
Yeah, there has been a disparity with Tennessee and Auburn, much higher than most others, but Alabama has re-evaluated theirs. It's been done, so Alabama's is going to elevate, Reg, so I think it's going to be closer in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I'll get some numbers for you next week, Reg, and we'll pass that along. All right, stay with us. We got more to go on this edition of Tider Insider TV, including more of your phone calls and tweets, and coming up as well, there's your contact information. We'll have much more on the program, so stay with us right after this. Landon Collins was never one to back down from a challenge at Alabama, and he's not backing down in the NFL either. When asked by reporters about his expectations for his rookie seasons, Collins replied, "Rookie of the year." Pretty lofty goals, but I'm telling you, I know this young man very well. That's the way he thinks. He wants to be the best at everything he does, including on the football field. Don't bet against him. Let's head right back to the phone lines, Rod. Go to Moundville and talk to Dale. Hey, Dale, welcome into the program.
How you doing?
Very well.
I'm really excited about Coach Johnson coming in. I was wondering if we have any names on that swing player, and also I wonder what do you think it's going to take to get some of the students back involved in the game. I've been to a lot of games this last several years. Got in free because a lot of the season ticket holders would give me tickets. I'm hoping that don't happen. I'm hoping to see some excitement come, but what do y'all think about that?
Well, on the excitement part of it, I think that's going to happen. As we were saying, you know, he's got everybody excited. Of course, ultimately, it's going to be about winning, but I think initially, early in the year, students are going to come out in big numbers. Fans will, too. They're going to want to see Avery Johnson in
There'll be
action.
a lot of curiosity. People want to see this, you know, team, as he's talked about, you know, buckle your seatbelts, because they're going to play a really exciting brand of basketball, and I think that's what fans are looking forward to.
And as far as the swing player, I do think that Coach is going to add one more player. A name that's popped up is Mustafa Heron, a former Pittsburgh commitment, 5-star recruit, number 25 player in the country, visited Alabama over the weekend, reportedly at Marquette today. I mean, that's a guy this late in the game for 2015. Sure. If you could have the number 25 player, number 3 rated swing guard in the country, that'd be a big pickup.
Yeah, there it goes back again to what we were talking about earlier. He's very aggressive with his recruiting.
Yeah, indeed he is. Thanks for the phone call, Dale. Let's go to Trussville and talk to Corey. Hey, Corey, what's up tonight?
Hey, Gary and Rodney, how are you doing tonight?
Very well.
Hey, I was wondering, the fact that Blake Sims was a fifth-year senior and he knew the system at Alabama, and the fact we lost Amari Cooper, is Jake Coker, you think, is he ready to take that next role and be able to thrive in the offense that Alabama has?
I don't know, Corey. I mean, that's the question. I mean, if he were ready, I think they would have already named him the starter. He is in a dogfight for that, to win that job. I do think it's a concern. I've said it on the program, Rod. If he were so far ahead of those other guys, I think he'd already been named the starter. Now, does he have the potential to do it? Yeah, I still think he's the favorite, but he hasn't won the job yet.
Yeah, they split time in the spring, between 4 and 5 guys. Sometimes Cooper Bateman played some wide receiver, but, they really didn't establish a number one guy. And, going into fall camp, they don't have that number one guy. I think any of those guys could take it. There's 5 guys still competing, so, we'll see what happens. But right now, I would agree with you, Gary. I think going in, you have to think Jacob Coker is the guy. It's his to lose. Is he going to win it or is he going to lose it?
It'll be interesting to find out. All right, BT, real quickly, what you got, man?
Gary and Rodney, how are y'all doing tonight?
Very well.
I want to talk about the recruits for the 2015 that come in, far as basketball, who will be starting this year.
All right, BT, I'll tell you what, I think everybody that comes in here that he has signed or will sign is going to have an opportunity to play. I think everybody on the roster is going to have an opportunity. I really get the feeling he's going to certainly look at what they did in the past. New guys, of course, didn't have a past here, but I think everybody's going to have an opportunity, right?
Yeah, I think it's it's obviously these guys coming in. They're basically, they have as much experience probably almost as or will have in Coach Johnson's system as the guys who are already here. So I think they're certainly going to be able to compete for a lot of playing time. They're going to need them.
That's going to be part of the fun, in fact, is watching how this playing rotation comes about. As far as who's going to start, BT, I've got no idea at this point. All right, we're going to be back with more TITV right after this. Stay with us. Some fashion advice from an unlikely source is coming up. Plus, Eddie Lacy with a baseball in his hand. We have video evidence of his first pitch with the Milwaukee Brewers on a beautiful, well, a few clouds, but still a nice evening in Tuscaloosa, nice and cool. We'll be back to wrap it up right after this. A Bama battery at a Milwaukee Brewers game last week. Green Bay Packers running back Eddie Lacy on the mound, throwing the first pitch to former Crimson Tide pitcher, now with the Brewers, Jimmy Nelson. It may have been just a bit high, but I'm sure the crowd thought it was a strike. Good stuff right there. All right, Rodney, it's dinner time, and tonight we're headed up to one of our favorite places to eat, Buddy's Rib and Steak in Northport. We'll be there in about 15 minutes. Why don't you join us? That's going to do it for this week's program. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. This has been Tider Insider Television. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.